Okay, so it's pretty safe to say that it's common knowledge at this point that Star Wars is in a very delicate and messed up situation, all because of individuals like Kathleen Kennedy, Rian Johnson, and J.J. Abrams, and really all of Disney handling Star Wars in the worst way possible and disrespecting George Lucas's outlook on what the franchise really stands for. And the next up on that list, Leslye Headland, is taking it to a whole new level of dismantling George Lucas completely with his, of course, philosophy of Star Wars. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. And let's get right into the subject, shall we? Now, we know that there's a lot of problems arising out of the Acolyte series as well as Skeleton Crew. Two shows, by the way, that are 100% creatively controlled by Kathleen Kennedy, which I believe is going to spell doom for those two shows without a doubt. Now, given that The Acolyte is pretty much the most controversial Star Wars project out there in a very long time since The Last Jedi, in fact, I believe that The Acolyte might even continue to divide the fandom, even in a worse way than The Last Jedi by Rian Johnson, and there's a specific reason why that we're going to be talking about and covering today. Now, there's been a lot of things happening behind closed doors with The Acolyte and everything going on over at LUCASFILM after a lot of the emergency meetings, not just at Disney, but also at LUCASFILM, and how there's a lot of budgeting constraints for these upcoming shows, and it's really limiting creators like Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni to do what they really want to do with Star Wars down the road. And unless Ahsoka is like a mega hit, they're going to get more clearance, of course, for future shows to have, wider budgets, only if that is a smash success. On top of this, with Kathleen Kennedy and Leslye Headland focused on The Acolyte completely, evolving and changing Star Wars from the ground up, one major development has much to do with George Lucas that easily is the worst news in decades for him as a creator. One big piece of the Acolyte show is that Leslye Headland is dismantling something very important created by Lucas. Headland is about to make a canon that the Jedi were always evil and held evil roots back to the first Jedi and the first Jedi Temple of the Order to compensate and revolve the story around how the Sith are misunderstood and were traditionally the good guys turned bad by the Jedi themselves during the ancient times of an era called Dawn of the Jedi. Headland's plan is to completely reverse the roles of good and evil and the true backstory and origin of the Jedi and the Sith of good and evil for shock value in the upcoming series, and how it's going to connect to James Mangold's Dawn of the Jedi movie, focusing on these evil tendencies and roots to the Jedi. Even Lucas got into heated arguments with Disney's higher-ups after learning about the story twist for The Acolyte and is actually demanding to be revised. However, Disney is reportedly not listening to Lucas's demands, since Kennedy holds all creative power over the series. Now, this is an idea, surprisingly, by the way, that Leslye Headland got her blessing from director Rian Johnson of The Last Jedi, since she went to him for advice on dealing with big, bold decisions in a Star Wars story that may spark criticism, backlash, and fan division. Now, guys, let me just stop right here for one moment. Now, what really is concerning to me is what Leslye Headland is doing here. How she is so relentless on really just changing everything that we know and love about Star Wars. The whole concept of good and evil having a completely different background than we ever thought of. And how she really wants to kind of turn the roles around. That the Sith are misunderstood and are really the good guys all along, and that the Jedi are bad. I'm not surprised in this day and age that this is something that Leslye is going for, and how she's really looking to establish this in Star Wars, and let's face it, that's what Leslye is all about. She's not a George Lucas fan. She's not a fan at all herself. I mean, she claims that she is on stage at Star Wars Celebration 2023. Check it out. Type it up. But the problem here is that she also despises George Lucas. She is somebody that called the fans engaged in being, with misogyny because you're expecting George Lucas in the room, or fans look at him as the key to success for Star Wars. She believes that is a misogynist, I guess you could say, behavior. And that really just goes to show you how misplaced she really is from reality. It's the truth. You know, people like Leslye Headland, they don't really have a right mind in their head, and they really have no idea what they're talking about. That's exactly why I've always said the Acolyte series is going to be worse than The Last Jedi. This is like The Last Jedi, you know, pretty much on steroids is the best way I could really explain it. It's really that bad. You know, when you look at this series, it may sound good on paper. I mean, I get it. You know, it's about emerging dark side powers, and the genre is a mystery thriller. It's based, you know, 70 years, give or take, maybe 80 at most, before The Phantom Menace. And so, yeah, there's a lot of possibilities of what you can throw in there with cameos and connecting storylines to the prequels, but she is making a lot of divisive decisions in this series that's really going to, I believe, split the fandom apart even further, and more so damaging to the brand than ever before. That's my take. Moving on, Lucas, alright, surprisingly, is currently extremely heartbroken over this decision that Leslye Headland is pursuing, and holds no remorse of embracing this story decision that will drastically change people's view of the origins of the Sith and the Jedi. Even FAVREAU and Filoni spoke up to Disney and sided with Lucas over this damaging story decision that they believe will tarnish the brand further on the mishandling of the tales of the Jedi and the Sith, and could even break any kind of momentum that they are trying to pursue. The planned reshoots for The Acolyte by this November, only if the strikes come to a close, are actually planned to also enhance this storytelling further in more episodes, which may of course go on to tell you that this brings it to a new extreme by Leslye Headland. Now here's the problem with Kathy and Leslye, is that I've always said this, and this is just my little comparison. I always look at, you know, Kathleen Kennedy and Rian Johnson almost like Palpatine and, Darth Maul. Once Darth Maul is X'd out, hence Rian Johnson, you have somebody else coming in as a replacement. Then you have, you know, Count Dooku. So basically you have this Jedi and the Sith, and that's how I view Leslye and Kathy. Always two, there are a master and an apprentice. That's what they're doing with Star Wars. They are literally destroying it. You know, evil can only destroy, right? That's what we all know. They can never really create. And that's how I feel what's going on, you know, on the business and creative ends of Kathleen Kennedy's spectrum of Star Wars. There's no doubt about this. And so I feel bad for Lucas, I really do. I mean, it's just he should have never sold this to Disney. He should have never allowed Bob Iger to put Kathleen Kennedy as the president of LUCASFILM, and so on and so forth. You know, I feel that Disney was never the right choice. I think that any other studio would have been a better studio than to handle Star Wars. You know, Disney was definitely the wrong choice, and we all saw it coming, right? Back in 2012, everybody, myself included, had bad feelings about this. We sensed it because they were going to Disneyfy it and stuff like that, make it a little bit more, you know, watered down, and that's exactly what it ended up to be, and it's getting worse. So anyway, guys, drop a comment below. Fill me in below in the comments what you all have to say about this. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.
Night to moon, we hear them moans again.